Okay, should be live right now.
Cool.
And I should start recording. Let's see. Okay. The music. First, I want to see. I can see my stream. Yeah, this isn't live.
One watching now.
No way.
Bye.
I mean, that was just me.
Oh. You can't read it.
Well,
It's too...
it's not my fault.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Christy,
Steven.
you want to learn Substance Painter.
I do indeed want to learn Substance Painter.
Good. Because I'm going to teach you. Okay?
Good. Teach me.
Okay, so you want to be a texture artist.
Yes.
And you downloaded your trial of Substance Painter, but you don't know what the hell is going on.
Mm.
So I'm here to alleviate you of your suffering and confusion by simply starting by pressing File. And I click on New. And let's see. What the hell is that? Okay. So you wanted to texture a dagger,
I did.
a knife, and you need to import an OBJ or an FBX, which is a mesh file. To do that, we're going to go to File Select, and not that. Where is it? Oh. No, not that. That. Okay, there's the file.
Mm-hmm.
And click on it. And we also have a baked normal map. Do you know what that means?
No.
So this is the texture created by baking the high poly onto the low poly game mesh. And that creates basically it's projecting detail onto a very low poly mesh that does not have that detail.
Okay.
So it's faking detail.
Mm.
And this is critical for texturing, for really games at all at this point, but especially so for Substance Painter.
So, do I need to bake them out myself, or do objects that I download from the library automatically happen?
Well, it depends. Depends on if you are. I don't know.
Oh no. What does that mean?
I don't know. This doesn't have UV coordinates.
I don't know what that means. I gasped as if I did.
Why does this mesh not have UV coordinates? What is up with that?
I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay, we're running into problems here,
Some technical difficulties.
but that's okay.
It's okay. That's the way it goes. Has anybody viewed it yet?
Oh, this says there's another viewer.
Hello, other viewer.
I'm scared. I'm really frightened. I gotta fix something before I can get started.
Should pull that into the view that's streaming so people can see stuff.
Um,
You don't have to explain
Okay.
it,
fair enough. So I gotta go into Maya. Oh my god, this is jacked up. Dear Lord. Where is the... Okay, so forgot exporting from Unreal. That's bad. Okay. There's multiple LODs. Get rid of those. Assume this is the highest. Yeah. Why does this not have... So it says it has EVs. Oh, I know. Okay. Never mind. Okay. This should be better now. Okay. Okay, so you ran into an issue, Christy,
I did.
and then you quickly solved it, which is really good news.
With the help of my lovely assistant.
Yes. So now, I'm gonna re-add these things that we need. We desperately need these.
Do I need to change anything? Is the defaults okay?
No. Yeah, you should be good.
Okay.
Just gotta import your mesh and your baked normal map.
Alright.
Discard bin. So now you have a really neat knife.
Cool.
It's really, really cool.
It's a pretty freaking sweet knife.
But unfortunately, it looks like it's white.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So, okay, we're in the right. So, Substance Painter, these are the 3 tabs you're going to care about. So the Layers tab is just what you would imagine. It's like Photoshop layers. Simple. It has blend modes, which are very useful. Opacity, also useful. And also, very important, is this drop down here, which goes between the different, the map, or the map groups, essentially. So they're different channels.
Okay.
And a lot of these channels get exported out into separate texture files.
Okay.
Like base color is almost always going to be its own texture file,
Okay.
and then the normal map as well. But then some of these also get combined. So, but that's down the road. So yeah.
It has, so it shows the channels specifically when you click on them.
Yeah, so let's just take a look at this. So we have, let's make a fill. We're going to make a fill layer.
Okay.
Get rid of that. So this fill has a lot of really neat and interesting things you can do. But for now, let's say we just want to make it red.
Okay.
So we have a red knife.
All right.
Looks really cool. And then we also want it to be really, really shiny. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
It's really, really shiny now. And also metallic.
Ooh. It's really cool.
So it looks like it's something out of a 1999 video game now.
Yeah.
Looks
It could be
really-
in Hellboy.
Yeah. Or like the original Elder Scrolls.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, fill layers have these different channel properties.
Okay.
And it's basically like how it works in Photoshop, where you can create fill colors,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can change them dynamically. And the biggest thing to know about Substance Painter is nothing is permanent. Everything is changeable and
So it's not destructive.
yeah, well, it's all non-destructive.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of like, Christ, I don't remember what the word is, but you'll find out. So the texture set list is very useful for swapping between material groups or texture sets. Luckily, this is a simple object; it only has one group. But if you're working on a complex object, like a character, you're going to have multiple materials or texture sets,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the way to swap between those.
Okay.
And the layers are all going to be separate. They're specific to each texture set. So let's say the blade was red on
Mhm.
one group, but it's not going to be on everything else.
Okay.
And then here, the texture set settings, the most important feature I think you'd be using at the beginning is let's see, setting up your normal map, so
Mhm.
assigning it to the mesh. Let's see, let's turn off this goofy thing.
That was
So
pretty
now,
good.
so the normal map has added all of this detail where there was none.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
That is cool. So we've assigned the map and we're going to bake mesh maps. So we don't need to bake a normal map because we already have it.
Mhm.
And I tend not to bake ID maps because there's a specific workflow for doing that and it's not worth getting into here.
Mhm.
So what we need are world space, ambient occlusion, curvature, position, and thickness.
Okay.
So let's see. Before I explain them, anti-aliasing of 4x4, and that's good. And we're just working in 2K.
Okay.
So these are being generated from both the normal map and ray casting that the program is doing. So it's rendering rays on the mesh itself,
Mhm.
which is how it's generating things like ambient occlusion and thickness. Okay,
Can you go back into that setting really quick?
yeah.
You said turn off normal maps and ID maps.
And you can bake these maps and it'll replace the normal map, but you can still put the old one back in.
Okay.
Worst case scenario. Okay, so these maps are used with their procedural systems. So I'll show an example.
What do you mean by procedural?
You-
Procedural.
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 You will see right now.
So maps are they're connected to the procedural elements on the side. Is that what you said?
Well, so Substance Painter comes with a library of materials which are just really basic, simple fill layers, essentially.
Mhm.
So, let's see. I picked this aluminum here.
That looks dumb.
Yeah, well, yeah. of
Well, I
course.
know, but
So,
oh my gosh.
it looks weird,
Yeah.
but this is a single. If there's so, different materials will have different procedural settings.
Mm.
So let's see.
This is how nodes work in Toon Boom.
It's basically a node system, but it's hidden behind all of these sliders.
That's cool. I wish Toon Boom was like that.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So,
Is it updating in real time?
well, it's affecting. So each slide here is like a different node, and it's tiling. It's a tiling texture that is affecting the texture in a certain way. So they talk about. So they've labeled it as deposit. I don't know what that means exactly. Deposit spread. So it looks like it's some kind of color or roughness, maybe.
So it's like noise.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But so we have this simple material, and we can go to the top of the fill settings here, and we can change. There's some key things that we want to keep in mind. Projection method. So right now it's on UV. That means if we go to let's see, press F1, so we can see side-by-side view. So here's the mesh flattened out in UV coordinates.
You said it was F1 to open up the UV map?
Yeah, F1 for the dual configuration, F2 for 3D, and F3 for just the UV mode or flattened mode.
Okay. And okay.
Let me see. So I guess I'm having buffering issues with the video. Okay, I don't know what to do about that.
Maybe just record it on Zoom and upload it later. Just
Yeah, whatever. We'll see.
okay.
So you can take a look here. So I can move this tileable texture around.
Oh.
So basically, the whole texture is really this square, but it's tiling.
So as long as you have that layer selected and you're using which tool to grab it, is it just the default?
It's just so I can just click on this layer here.
Oh,
and
okay.
In this mode, I can move it around like this,
Neat.
which is
Okay.
very useful, and I can rotate it. And you can
So-
see that this is affecting the sliders over here, offset and rotation.
That's cool.
So you don't have to do it this way. You can do it in a more precise way, or you can do hold shift to kind of snap in 45 degrees.
Cool.
And you can also scale it down.
So they're tiled?
Well, so this pattern is smaller.
I see.
And you can scale it non-uniformly too.
Okay.
So that's just kind of the just manipulating a really simple material
Mm.
right off the bat.
Okay.
And also on these channels, you can turn them on and off.
Mm.
So let's just say you just want this normal detail, like this height pattern here,
Mhm.
and nothing else. Then you just click on everything but the normal channel.
Okay, so you're doing that, and you can control that and layer other ones on top of it that'll affect other ones, so they have different. They're tiled differently. And it's like a blend mode almost.
So, say that again.
So you could have all of these selected, or like a couple of them, and make a new layer that's on top of this one, and it would affect like for this one you wouldn't have height on, but the next one you would put height on. So you're just layering different textures and how they affect the object.
Sorry, I don't know. This started going off.
It did what?
Okay.
Oh. So I could have height off on this one, add in a new one, and put height on that one, so it builds
Yeah.
on top of each of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can do that.
So if I have height on both of them, I'm just turning them on and off to see how they affect each other, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So let's get into a bit more complicated material. So Substance Painter comes with smart materials, and these have a lot more. So they're groups of layers and effects. So let's see, what would be? Do this bronze corroded. So we take a look, open up this group. It says 4 different layers, each doing a specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at smart materials is a good way to really understand the texturing process yourself. It's kind of like a blueprint that Algorithmic has given people. Like, you can use it as reference, essentially. So let's see. So they have a base metal material, and we can change the color of this.
Cool.
Maybe it's going to be a weird,
Rusted yellow.
like a poopy brown or something. And then on top of this, they've added a curvature dust, which is not very noticeable. So it's not really doing much. Let's see if we can make it do more. So this layer has a mask,
Okay.
and in Painter there's a very robust mask editing system,
Okay.
which is going to be the main way that you create detail in your texture. So here, let's try increasing the balance.
So it's like the shadows inside the curves.
Let's see. So in base color mode, which is this drop down here in the render view, we can see the effect, and it looks like it's affecting the edges. or yeah. And we can kind of see it here.
Yeah.
It's changing the roughness, so this is affecting multiple channels.
Mm.
And then we have this layer here.
Why is it so green?
Let's see. Let's see if I can ask it there. See if I can invert that. Maybe we can multiply it. No. Seems like this material's kind of broken right off the bat, but that's okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's make the blade. Let's give it a material. So what do you want to do?
What do you mean?
What kind of material do you think would look good on this? It can be whatever.
Like a sand texture? Or like a... You mean like a... What would look good as like a map that's repeating on it?
Well, right now we just have, so we have no textures.
Okay.
So the first thing we want to do, let's say this blade is steel. So let's drag this out. That already looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's working. But we want just the blade
Not the
to be
handle.
metal.
Okay.
So we're going to create a mask. And there's a few ways you can do that. You can either right click, add white mask or black.
It doesn't matter if I choose black or white.
A black mask is easier right off the bat because it makes selecting which part of the mesh you want to be white in
So,
the mask.
is it like
easier.
it is in Photoshop? That white is fully exposed, black is not exposed at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the fastest way to select just the blade is pressing 4 and going to the UV mode in the fill mode, and you have to click on the mask
Okay.
to activate it, just like you do with the fill to manipulate the texture itself.
Uh-huh.
To go to the mask and press 4 for polygon mode, and make sure your color on the slider is white, and then you just drag and select that mesh.
Oh. Okay. So
the-
again and again. You said press 4, and then when you're selecting it, you make sure that it's white. So you
Yeah.
make sure that this is white.
And you have to drag out. So this is by UV, and what it's doing is each one of these looks like they're little islands of
Mhm.
polygons. These are their own UV islands. which makes it easier to select, to make more detailed selections.
Okay.
But you have to make sure that you're selecting all of the islands associated with that mesh loop.
Okay.
My phone's going off.
Is it? It says public safety alert due to the presence of spread of COVID-19. Colorado is calling a state of emergency stay-at-home order that starts on Thursday.
Oh man,
Only essential personnel should go out.
son of a bitch.
We're living in a crazy time, man.
Thought they said they weren't gonna do that.
They changed their mind.
Jesus Christ, dude. Awesome.
It says it starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay. That's good news.
It says we can still go to the store though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says you can. Yeah, everyone needs to stay home unless they're going to an essential workplace, seek necessary medical care, or do an essential task like going to the grocery store or walking a pet.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty.
That looks good.
So it's really basic, simplistic, and it's, I mean, you're using just, a stock material. So you're gonna want to do more, but for now, the best thing to do is to just lay out you're laying the groundwork for your texture. So what I do is I group every material together. So let's see, this is going to be the blade material, and I'm just going to drop that in there. And we've already made a mask for the blade, so we can just copy that mask, add a black, and then paste into mask, which is very nice. I wish Photoshop had something like that,
Yeah, you're telling me. Oh my god.
but they don't. So, okay.
Wait, hold on one second. I'm writing notes. So you said go into the group, paste the black mask, and then create a black mask on your group, and then paste your.
You can paste into
Okay,
mask.
but you still have to make a mask first before you do
Yeah.
that, right? Okay.
I think maybe it won't allow you to paste into a mask
Okay.
if you don't have one.
Okay.
So, taking a look at this, I guess we can just work our way down to this piece. And I assume this is also going to be metal, but it shouldn't be the same metal. Maybe it's like a rubberized metal. So, let's see if there's any basic material we can find. They're still painted. That might work. Let's just do that. That looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
Looks like when you spray paint metal.
So this time we'll just make a mask on the group, and this is going to be metal grip, or metal. Let's call it a frame. And we're going to go back to UV selection. I'm just going to drag select all this stuff. And I assume this is going to be, this would probably be the same.
What is that at the bottom? Is that a clip?
This is,
Maybe it's to pinch it into the bayonet.
Yeah, I think you're right, because it goes here and then clips in there.
That makes sense.
So this piece makes sense to be. Let's do this, and then that'll be different metal. And these are separate meshes, so I can just select mesh fill and just click on them.
Oh, okay.
And to remove it, I just fill black. So
what do these do then?
this is the triangle and the face selection or fill mode. So I can do.
Oh, it's like individual polygons.
Yeah, which sometimes
That's
is
tedious.
well. Yeah, I mean for this we don't need that. For sometimes you would. I mean I've used it before, so.
That makes sense.
This would be a good time to talk about a couple hotkeys. So pressing C it cycles through your like a single channel.
Okay.
So
Up on your render mode.
in the render window, yeah. And you can see which channel it's on by looking at the right drop down.
Okay.
And it'll say what channel it is. And you cycle through, and then it just repeats. And to get back to main render, you press M.
Okay.
All right, so let's get. Let's say. We need a material for the grip, so.
Do like a bronze or like a reddish metal.
I was gonna pick a rubber.
That's fine. Do what you want to do.
Okay. Let's see. Rubber. What is it good? I think let's try this here. So I need to make a mask. So I have this material. What is my next step? I don't want it to affect all this shit.
Create a mask. Add it black. And then press 4 for polygon mode. And then turn this to white. And select out where you want it to be.
Make sure
Or
I'm
change
on
it to that one. Oh, I
UV.
thought it was that one. It's not.
Well, if I do this, that works. It's a
Alright.
separate mesh, so
Oh.
that's cool.
Cool. I don't like that texture. It's kind of gross looking.
Yeah, well, it's gross now. So put that in its own group. Just call it grip. And copy. Paste.
Okay.
And let's just change the color on this. So this material has 2 colors. Let's see what it does. Color 1 is the main color. You said you wanted red.
Yeah. I guess. That looks like death.
Let's make it dark. Something dark.
I like that more already.
And then looks like the secondary color.
It's kind of a speckle.
Yeah, it's some little lighter speckle.
Yeah, that looks better. Looks like a foam matte a little bit.
Yeah, so it's because this texture is too big right now. So change the scale quickly
Wow,
to something smaller.
that makes a big difference.
Maybe even go to 8 and see how that looks.
Huh.
That's
Well,
not
it looks
bad.
like it meshes in better to that crisscross pattern that was on the grip anyway.
Right. And maybe we can.
Is there like a blend option for like how it
Could reduce the height intensity.
oh, I see. Huh. Interesting. That does look better.
Yep.
Looks pretty good.
Alright, final piece. These little metal bits.
Hmm.
So let's go back. Let's just say it's aluminum. Maybe it's
Make it a poppy color. Something bright.
let's see. Let's try this. So this has a. It's gonna, oh, this is the one from before. Okay, I don't want that. Let's do this. Alright, throw it in a group. Metal thing. Make a mask. Select mesh. And there we got it.
Cool.
Alright, so
We did it.
we're done now.
But we're not.
I mean, this would be okay.
Mildly acceptable if you were a noob.
I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose of using Substance Painter
That makes sense.
because, in essence, you can already be doing this in Engine. If you're just assigning simple tiling materials like this, then you would have each element split off into its own material group, and then in the game engine like Unreal, you just assign pre-made materials that are dynamic just to those material groups, and then it'll look like this.
Makes sense.
And there's other like procedural ways you can do, like it can look really good doing it procedurally that way, but you still have to go into something like Substance Painter to make those materials and make it look good. But for now, we're just worrying about its own standalone texture. So what's looking shitty to you right now?
The blade, a little bit.
Yeah, it's looking weird,
Looks kind of dirty.
dented. So, like we did with the grip material, we can change the texture scale, and that's not really helping. It's making it worse. So you can see
That texture.
how it's tiling, right?
Yeah. So you can import your own textures like this as a tileable object?
You could.
Okay.
But
Damn.
yeah, it looks bad.
Yeah.
So we're just going to turn that off completely. We don't want any of that tiling normal.
I like that better.
And then it's still kind of, I don't know, it's,
Dirty. The color isn't really meshing with the other colors.
so you can see the roughness is being tiled. So you can already see the repeating pattern here.
Yeah.
That's not good, especially on an object that, let's say this is a first-person dagger that you're going to be using. So you're going to be seeing it up close,
Yeah.
and you're going to notice that repeating texture. So let's try seeing how it looks, just at a scale of 1.
That looks better.
And already that's, yeah, it's looking more realistic.
Can we change how yellow it is? It looks like greenish yellow.
Well, that would be the lighting itself, changing the color.
Because it's reflective.
Yeah. So this is, if you don't know, Substance Painter is a physically based rendering texture program, or PBR for short, which is what all of the current game engines are using to render. And that's so the physical lighting is a method I think Disney first created, so that their rendering software, it's basically based off of those kinds of all that math, but essentially that means you will see the environment reflected in the rendering of the texture itself. So you'll see things that aren't in the texture, but only in the environment. So we can change the environment map, which is let's see, it was the panorama. So it's this here. So it's I forget what it's called.
Prairie?
Well, it's like a cube map, essentially.
I thought you were trying to ask what type of environment.
No.
It's like, I don't know, it seems pretty obvious.
So we're probably seeing the grass and the dirt being reflected in the blade.
That makes sense. How did you get to that?
So this is on the right here, in display settings. There's a whole bunch of features here, but for now we just want to change the environment map. So we're going to go to what is a good one? Trying to do this one.
Oh wow. So when you're texturing, is it a good idea to have a neutral type of a background that is a lot of grays?
Yes, it is. It is a very good idea to be as neutral as possible.
Okay.
So, but you want to make sure you're getting like a good read on the material. So here, this is looking a lot less reflective than it was with the other map. So, the trick is to find the studio. So the studio light is okay. Or Studio 03, which is right here. And you can turn on shadows in display setting.
So how are you manipulating the light source? You're holding shift?
Holding shift and dragging right click. But turn off shadows. Here you can also change the field of view.
Okay. Huh. Wow. That's interesting.
It's gonna make me sick. I work at 45, which is it maintains like proper shape at pretty much any distance.
Yeah, because you can still. It's
You
like
can zoom
you're-
in and it's not all fisheye.
Well, yeah, it's like doing the field of vision when you're doing landscape design.
Yeah.
We can't perceive past like 45 degrees, so he starts getting distorted.
Right.
I think it's like 30 degrees actually. I don't know. Our brains are dumb.
Yeah.
So we call it the cone
Cone of vision.
of vision, yeah. I was gonna say cone of view and I couldn't remember what the other word was. Yeah, the cone of vision.
Okay.
Is anybody watching?
It says there's a couple, but
Hello, people.
yeah, I don't know. No, I can't. I don't know if I can see chat or not. So
It's like not updated.
it's not updating on the streaming page for some reason. Don't know why.
You said that PBR stood for physically based render.
Yeah. Okay, so we made this base material for the blade look better.
Yeah.
It still looks kind of weird. So we can change the change the roughness, which I guess and darker. So what I really want to do is get rid of this noise. So a fast way to do that, because I can't really manipulate this material to do that, I can create a new fill, select everything, deselect everything but roughness,
Okay.
and then in roughness view, I can look at, I can change the opacity of this layer. So now it's beginning to just dull that roughness.
Okay.
And maybe I can darken the roughness layer.
Yeah, that seems better.
Yeah.
Seems weird there's like a line at the top.
I don't know what that is. I think it's, yeah, so that's in the base normal map,
Oh, I see.
which, you know, that's okay. Alright, so the metal is looking better. But it could look even better. Let's just say that. And so what we're going to do is start using those maps that we baked by creating another fill. And let's see. Let's just affect color and roughness for this. So I want the edges to be a little more dull so that they pop out. And I can see the form of the model more. So So let's reduce it down to something like that value. So black roughness is pure. It's as reflective. It's like mirror reflective quality, and then white is going to be completely dull, matte finish. Change the base color to maybe something a little bit, brighter like that. I'll call that edge blur. And now we're going to we're going to make a black mask. And let's use a generator, or no, I'm gonna add a fill. So in this fill layer, by adding effect, fill.
Right.
This comes with a drop down, so I can search for, let's see, I know I want curvature. I'm going to pick the curvature map that we baked. So now that map has become my mask.
Okay.
So you can see all the detail and information.
Yeah.
But I want to just highlight this edge.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do now is go back to add effect, add levels, and now I can levels adjust. So maybe I want just a bit of detail in there, but it's highlighted this edge here, all these edges. And so in contrast, we can see a lot of this detail more clearly.
Yeah.
And it's from a distance, it's beginning to kind of pop. But some of this wear is a bit, it's a bit intense and a bit sharp. So an easy way to fix that is to go to filter, and then in this drop down go to blur. And it helps smooth out that mask.
Cool. I feel like this is the same series of steps I go through when I'm using Photoshop.
It's very much a step-by-step process.
It just feels very familiar because I will make the separate adjustment layers for shadows and light, duplicate it, mask it out, blur it out,
Right.
change blending modes.
But what's badass about this is you're doing all the work in the mask itself, which means unlike Photoshop where the different filters or effects like blurring, because it's a raster image, it gets baked into it and you can't fucking fix it.
That's why I have so many fucking layers in Photoshop.
Right.
That's why it's garbage.
But here I can turn off blur if I don't like it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't destroy any of my work below.
That's cool.
But it's blurred, it's softer, that looks better, it reads better. But it's still too uniform across the entire blade. So I'm going to add another fill. And with this fill, I'm going to want to multiply this on top of everything I've done in my mask. So let's see. Let's go to grunge, and let's look at maybe, yeah, that might be good.
It's kind of scratched up.
So now in here, it has its own blend mode.
Oh. So does every layer have that?
Every fill does,
Oh.
or painted layer or whatever. Filters and effects. Let's see, generator. Generator does also. Let's see. But yeah, okay. Now multiply. And so we can take a look at the mask, and we can see that this effect now, this tiling texture multiplied on top, is reducing and breaking up these even lines. So now it's looking that much more realistic, because I mean things just don't wear uniformly.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So what do you think of that? Do you like that?
Good. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
What about,
Other than like adding blood or something to it.
we could add some blood once we're done with this. So I see all of this as the base material. So this is the building blocks of basically every material that you're making is going to be broken up into these different layers. And you can even, if you wanted, like, well, you should actually be copying stuff like this that you've already done,
And putting it into the other ones.
and you can paste it right into there. So now the same effect
Damn.
is being applied,
It looks good.
cutting your work down.
Significantly.
Yeah. And
that
so
makes
now, once you have layers made for one material,
sense.
you can copy it and tweak the mask, like to this edgeware, and reduce it, like, and we could even,
Oh yeah. So say I would want to create more of like a thing and the connection of the blade to this metal. How would I do that?
what do you mean?
Like to create like a little bit more of like a shadow almost, where
Oh.
you could see like where it's going into the metal. As if it's worn, I imagine it would be like maybe it's not like welded in, or even if it is welded in, showing that connection a little bit more.
Well, you can do this. Let's see. So let's make a new fill.
Okay. So pretty much you start off when you're doing most things by creating a fill layer.
You're either picking and choosing materials from the library, or creating a fill to make your own effect.
Okay.
So let's see. Let's say it just affects color and roughness. Let's make it pretty dark and pretty matte. I'm going to call this AO contact. I'm going to make a black mask, and we're going to make a fill. And just like with the curvature map, we have the AO map baked.
What does the AO stand for?
Ambient occlusion.
What does that mean?
It's basically in engine, it's faking the dark recesses in objects that have the least amount of light.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
So light is just bouncing very little in those areas.
Okay.
So there's the ambient occlusion map. And it's baked as a white and black grayscale image, where white is well, black is the shadow,
Okay.
basically. But for using it in a mask, we have to invert this texture,
Okay.
because again, white is where the effect is happening and black is not.
Yeah.
So we go to levels, invert, and now we can see the effect beginning to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
But because we created this dark color, we want to change it to multiply.
Is it because it's lighter than the knife color?
No, I think it's because of the roughness.
Mm.
Yeah. So because it's a more matte roughness,
Mm-hmm.
it's reacting to light differently, and that is offsetting the darkness that we have,
Hmm.
at least in this scene. So let's just turn on roughness off.
Oh, I see. Okay. Huh.
So we can also make it a bit more intense, so we can adjust the levels. So you can see here there's a line. The two contact, the meshes contacting is
Creating a
not
line.
rendering,
Mm.
didn't bake properly. So
When we baked it, or when the normal VAP was made?
no. So Substance didn't bake it properly. So let's see what we can do to try to solve that. Is just bake the ambient occlusion and click on ignore backface.
So that's a blackface.
Ignore blackface.
So it's just going to replace that other ambient occlusion map and then all of the layers that we have linked with it?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
but it didn't fix it.
Well, the idea of it is awesome.
So maybe we can change the distance here. Let's make it smaller. Let's see what happens. No, that didn't really do much. So another way to solve that.
Huh.
I'm happy to do that. Let's see, let's take a look at this. Okay, so we have to turn off ignore backface here. Let's see if that fixes it.
Oh, that was a really bad lag. Jeez.
Yeah. Okay. So that fixed it.
Cool.
There it is. So that's good.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So this is looking weird, mainly because,
How extreme it is.
well, yeah, but that's okay because there's some things we can do. like make a fill. We can break up that AO. Let's just say concrete. Should look good. Multiply. Look at the mask. So now we can, let's see, change the scale and maybe change the intensity of the multiply.
That looks cool. Looks like it's out of a James Bond movie.
So now this effect is being reduced. And we can reduce it further by just changing the layer. So maybe something like that. And then we can add this layer and copy and paste to the metal frame group. Can copy and paste. Okay. Now that looks even better
Yeah, it does.
because it's affecting, both of these meshes and the planes.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then one final thing we can do is create some. So just like with the edge mask, the edge wear, we can create a cavity fill there.
Okay.
And let's see. Let's say maybe this is also matte, like maybe there's dirt that got into cracks. Maybe it's a little bit darker and maybe orangey, vaguely orange like that. Call this cavity.
Cavity.
Mask. Fill. Curve. And I could have just copied this and tweaked it, but I didn't do that.
I thought you were gonna say, but this is.
So now we've inverted this cavity, and now it's highlighting the deep
edging.
recesses. So like this stamped metal here,
Yeah.
and this kind of stuff. We can see it being affected clearly here in the base color.
Oh, that's pretty.
So it's looking more noisy because it's all across. Like in the normal map, this already had a bunch of like normal detail.
Yeah.
So one thing we can do is blur it again, which makes it
Yeah.
but I like what's happening here.
Yeah.
So reduce the blur. So now let's see. I want to mask off this layer here. I want to mask, even though it already has a mask, I want to mask everything that this layer is doing. And the only way to do that is to make another group. So I throw it in a group.
So it's a group in a group.
A group within a group within a
That's
group.
affecting the mask from the original group, and you're going to add another group onto the secondary group.
Well, it's only going to be masking this layer.
Oh. Okay.
And you want to make sure you set this group to pass through
Okay.
so that it's affecting everything below it within this group.
Yeah.
We'll call this cavity mask. Yes.
So it's like a multi-clipping mask, pretty much.
Yes, basically. But now I'm going to choose the paint layer or paint effect. And what this will do, so I can use my brush, which is the first time we're using a brush.
Yeah, I noticed.
And by the way, to get to that, you can either click on this or press 1, like it says here for the hotkey. And you can change the brush scale, brush size, by holding Control and right-click dragging left and right.
Oh, like Photoshop.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can change the fall off.
So the flow.
The
The
no, it's more like the
the
alpha.
softness.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's Control and then dragging up and down.
Oh, okay.
And alternatively, you can just right-click and it'll open up the brush menu. And you can do all this just with sliders. And you can change stuff like the alpha of the brush.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then there's other like you can change the value here.
Okay.
And then there's a stencil mode, but we're not going to be using that right now. Okay,
Okay.
alrighty.
Alrighty.
So I'm painting with white where I want this effect to be.
Yeah. So are you choosing your color in here? I'm sorry if you already said that. I was writing something down.
Yeah, you can choose it here,
Okay.
or you can right-click, go
I see. Okay.
choose it there.
So because you're in a mask right now, it's only letting you do black and white?
That's right. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Nice.
So I'm just going to paint this effect quickly here. And maybe I can clean this up a bit. Damn it. I don't know why it's doing it.
So you only want that condensed texture on the serrated element and the text?
Yeah, just any like deep crevices that will help
Help
it.
them out.
Yeah, pretty much create contrast.
Cool. Alright, I'm gonna grab something to drink.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, I'm ready.
So I made a wooden knife instead.
Oh. American cherry wood.
Alright, so let's say right now the blade is done. So let us let's copy this stuff. To the rubber grip. Now this is looking mighty jacked up. That's because I copied it from the blade.
Yeah.
So we'll just start layer by layer. We'll take a look at what's happening here. So this is the edge wear. Which you may not really want for this, just because of all the crisscross detail.
Yeah.
It's just it's just too uniform.
Yeah.
So let's just say, let's say we want to just change. I want to change this. So what would be a good map to use? Maybe what do we have here? Ambient occlusion. Maybe thickness. Alright. So that looks like.
Looks like a lightsaber a little bit. Like one of those fake ones you get from Target when you're little.
Well, it's simulating the. Basically, it's, when it casts rays, it's showing the volume of the mesh.
Interesting.
Which kind of looks like light. I think it. I don't know exactly what the calculation is, but it's almost like a light being cast through an object. But let's see if we can do something with this. So use a levels adjust. We can invert. Something like that. And then I can paint out this bottom, these sections I don't want.
So, remind me again how you added a paint layer. Is it just in a layer style that you drop down in, or is it a fill layer that you're just painting on?
So when you're in a mask, you gotta go to this effects
Okay.
drop down
Alright.
and then paint.
Okay, that makes sense. Alright.
And go back to that paint. You have to have it selected to affect it. Okay. So now I can blur this. I could reduce the edge effect even more. break it up. Go back to grunge. So that looks.
It's like marble almost.
Change the balance. So now we're getting some edge wear.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can even add height information to this, so to make it look like it's been chewed at. So I can go to height, chewed at, and choose a negative value. Because negative is, it's recessed, and then positive is yeah. So you can see there
So it's like concave versus
convex.
convex. Okay. That makes sense.
And maybe I want to change the color, something darker. Maybe, yeah, something like that. Change the opacity. And then I can throw on my AO there and see how it's being affected. It's working. And then go to our cavity mask and pull it out of this mask group. And now, like before, it's a bit intense. So maybe we can reduce the levels on this. Not really. Let's make it darker. So let's reduce.
No. Would you like to join them next year? Why she sounds so whiny?
I don't know.
It's like, what are you guys doing without me over here? Did you hear her little groan when she jumped up? I love you. You're so cute.
Oh yeah, we're on like over an hour.
I mean, I get the gist of it. It's not as complicated of a program as I thought it was.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's
I was going in thinking it was going to be Maya.
no, it's nowhere close.
I know. That's why I was like, oh, that.
It's all about layers. It's all about masks, and it's basically just having a method,
Yeah.
and then just stacking all that stuff on top of each other.
So the last thing I need to know is how do I render this out, and in what ways can I render it? Like as an image, as a video? Do I have to put it into the Unreal Engine?
Well, you should hold your horses, okay?
I'm just saying, if I want to show off my knife, how would I do it?
I will show you. We have to finish texturing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I'm going to copy
Sit back and watch it.
copy these layers, throw it into the metal thing group, copy this cavity, put it in there. You know, all this work that we did is being applied to these little pieces,
That's cool. That's good.
but it's cavity is not working for this because it's just too small. Yeah, that works. Edge.
When you put the cavity layer on there, did you delete your painted layer that you did the mask for?
Yeah, I just copied it from the mask
Okay.
group.
That makes sense.
All right, so this is starting to work. There's some like interesting little details we can do on top of all this. So we have these base materials. You said you wanted blood.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to show that it has killed many men.
Okay. So it's a weapon of murder. So let's see. Don't think there's a blood material, which is a shame.
It's not like
There is a
dried blood.
fingernail.
Ew.
You want to see that?
Ew. Okay, that's first of all bad and not realistic in any way.
Well,
It's pretty dumb looking.
I don't really. It's for a specific, very specific thing.
Why would they put that into the library then?
Well, because it's
That's
specific.
gross.
You can do human back skin.
Ew! No! Turn it off! Oh no! Could you imagine being stabbed with something that's that material?
You could put a human face on it.
You gonna let it
I did.
go? Oh, is that the crazy one you did? Ew. It's called the kiss of death when you get stabbed with it.
Yeah. So you could do something like that. That's pretty cool.
That's nasty.
But alright, let's make some blood.
Yeah. So are you just gonna paint it on? Or mask
Something
it?
like that. Something like that.
Something like
Just a little something like that.
that?
So let's see. It's gonna be glistening blood.
I was imagining more like dried
No, it was just used.
blood.
Call that layer blood. And make it fill. I wonder if there's like a
Yeah, drops or something.
splat. Stain splat. Stain splat paper. About a bloody handprint.
The tiniest little hand. Or it's a really big knife.
That might work. So let's see, we want this on the knife. Let's do triplanar projection, which is projecting in 3D space instead of
The 2D map.
yeah. But that's still kind of works. Maybe. Is that bloody enough for you?
No. That looks like candle wax.
Well, I know, but
But also, no. You said drenched in blood.
I don't want it to be drenched in blood.
That's what you said. I'm holding you to your word, sir. It's fine. It'll just be an approach.
That's okay. called a particle brush. I don't know which one I should use, but try this. Yeah, yeah. So, here we go.
That's perfect. How often does your computer freeze?
Not a lot.
I can just see my computer freezing right now. Also, how much does Substance cost?
It is like I think $20 a month.
That's not horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it better when you could just buy it.
If it's anything like Adobe, you can still just buy it, but they just offer no help after it's outdated. Like
Yeah,
they won't do any kind
I
of
think it's the same.
troubleshooting. Bullshit. Hey, did you start over?
Yeah, it looked dumb. So that's the problem with the particle brush is, as cool as it is, it looks dumb. You know
That
what I
is
mean?
me, what you just described.
You know what I'm saying?
As cool as it is, it looks dumb. That's how I feel about myself.
Oh boy. Let's see.
You can just do the splatters, okay?
I can do it the old-fashioned way.
Sculpt it with clay and hand paint it.
No, I don't want to do that.
Sylvia is the cutest when I retire from her. Sophie, I would die for you. It looks like it's supposed to be on a movie poster that was made with Photoshop. So it's where they added that like plastic wrap filter onto it.
What are you trying to say?
As cool as it is, it looks dumb.
Wow. I don't believe you. Because I'm using a mouse on right now. I don't know.
What?
Where's my...
It's not
Oh,
back
it's
there.
right there. Where's my...
Hey, you fool! Why are you using your mouse?
Oh, it doesn't work on here. Because I gotta install the fucking driver. God damn it. Alright.
You haven't installed the driver yet?
No. I forgot.
That sucks.
So, yeah, this looks dumb. That's okay because there's ways to make it better. Just finished rendering the blood drops. Maybe some blood is already splattered on the handle. It's pretty cool, huh? Okay. So one thing I can do is filter it, and blur it. No, you don't like that?
It was like makeup that was like ripped off. Maybe a little bit.
I'll blur it a little.
Little baby blur.
Little baby blur. You can warp it. It's the warp filter. It'll do that. That the blur on top.
Maybe you can make it less of a red, more like an oxidized maroon.
I could do that. Could lower the opacity. Yes, sure. That's looking pretty bad.
That looks better. Looks like it's right on top of it. A little bit.
Well, let's see. Let's get rid of maybe decreasing the height would help.
Could you give it like a fleeky texture?
If it was dried on there. Nothing I can do. Just create a kind of a gradient, paint out bottom. So it's not as uniform. No. That's looking horrible. I don't think it's gonna look good. So the big problem as to why it's looking really bad is number one, I'm using a mouse to paint in the blood,
Yeah, so it's kind of blobby.
so it looks goofy. So, but also the problem is the normal has all these the metal details baked into it, and I can't. There's not much I can do in Substance Painter other than there might be like one thing I could try, but I don't want to. Is all that blood is maintaining all of that surface noise, and so it's just looking.
It's looking like it's like the metal.
Yeah, it's not its own little surface, so that's an issue. And also trying to paint non-metal materials on top of metal materials is very difficult because you get basically this weird little outline gradient. Yeah, it's not good, and there's ways to get around that, but I think for now let's go back to the fill and let's just do the splat.
That looks better.
Yeah, it does. But the problem is it's not showing up on the other side because it's using UV projection. So could do triplanar projection, which is a little bit better. So we got. I'm just gonna do it the hard way. Which is duplicate this. And let's see if we can filter mirror and the mirror. Gave me something really hard to do, Christy. That's your fault. Alright, let's say that's good enough. Yeah. Yeah. Alright, I just want this blood to be on the blade. So, create a blood mask group. Select the mesh. Boom. There we go. So we got blood. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm glad you can give that to me.
It's because I love you.
I love you too. Only true lovers deliver each other a bloody knife.
Is that how the saying goes? Okay. I want some dirt. Okay? Is that okay with you?
No.
It's not?
I don't care.
I'm gonna make some dirt. Alright?
Okay.
This is a dirty, bloody knife.
Cool.
Someone's got some kind of AIDS.
Oh my god.
So, no, the person stabbed now has AIDS because of the dirty knife.
Oh, I see.
Now there's AIDS blood. That's even more dark.
I mean, they're both pretty bad.
Yeah, that's true. Here's my. Is that a good dirt color?
I would make it a little more saturated.
More saturated? Like that?
There you go.
Is that good? That would be a little bit more matte. Call it dirt layer. Make a mask. This time we're going to use a generator. And we choose the dirt generator. Now that shit is dirty.
That's a dirty ass knife.
Man, that should be dirty, man. Let's change the grunge amount. The grunge scale. Something like that. Grunge. Change the contrast. Level. Maybe let's try multiplying. No, that's too. That's soft light. No. Reduce the opacity just a bit. And maybe let's see, we'll add a paint layer to mask out the handle a bit more. We're almost done, Christy.
No, it's not.
We're almost done.
Cardigan?
Yeah.
We've been going for almost 2 hours.
Oh my god.
Almost 2 hours. 110 minutes, bro. Brother.
Brother. Okay. So this one, dirty ass, bloody ass knife. Oh boy. Okay.
Oh boy.
See, you got your textures,
Yeah.
and now you want to render it.
Yeah.
And first thing to do is to save, which is the first time I've saved.
Oh damn!
So
You're
good thing,
playing a dangerous game.
Good thing that
It doesn't have a autosave.
it does.
But it
Bloody
doesn't
ass
autosave if you don't save your first file.
knife. No, it caches. I think. I mean, it was like auto saving, so
That's good.
that was good. So now you've completed your textures, and you want to export them. So the easiest way to do that is just do Unreal Engine 4 export setting, which is a specific map setup, and it can be. I mean, most of the time, an engine is going to condense certain maps to save space. So you don't have a bunch of texture files just sitting when they don't need to be their own separate file. Like something like the occlusion, roughness, and metallic channels, they're all grayscale, which means they can be packed into an RGB layer, and that saves space. So you can change your export location. Substance Painter demo, select folder. You can also change the texture map name in let's see, whichever. Yeah, it would be this one. So you can change them here. But right now I don't care about that. It's not a big deal. Hit export. And now, just to save some time, we're gonna open up Marmoset Toolbag 3, which is a standalone render engine. It's kind of like Unreal, but without all the game stuff.
So, if I was looking to be a texture artist, what are the essential programs I would need to buy?
Substance Painter would be the first one. And for anything Photoshop related, you could just use GIMP if you really wanted to. And then Unreal Engine 4 is free to download.
That's cool.
So, and it's much better to be authoring textures for game engines as opposed to something like Marmoset Toolbag, which it renders differently. I mean, there's similarities. It's a physically based render engine, but it's going to look different in Marmoset than in Unreal Engine.
Why is that?
Just because of the way that the lights have been coded and the different shaders have been built, and everything is different. There's not like one uniform way that people handle lighting. It tends to be different all across engines, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but
Yeah.
that's how it is. So, okay.
Okay.
So you got your textures in your mesh, and then Marmoset.
How much does Marmoset cost?
I can't remember.
Is
It's
it just a bulk download?
I think it's like $100 or something.
That's not bad. Wait, per month or total?
No, just total. It's a one purchase.
Oh.
So I dragged in my mesh file, which is the FBX,
Okay.
and now let's see. I'm gonna open up this material settings here, and we have these different inputs for all the textures. So I'm going to drag in my normal map to here.
Nice.
Drag in base color to the albedo section, which consequently also has a fill, which is darkening that. And
Can
then,
you change a fill to just be plain opaque? Change the opacity of the.
well, the shader just has like a color fill
Oh.
that gets multiplied on top, and for some reason it defaulted at grayscale. So already we can see. Let's see. Let me change my light to this guy. There we go. So we see the base color, and we see the normal map. Is that inverted? What's going on there? Yeah, okay. So in Marmoset, because I exported as Unreal, I have to flip the Y channel. That's more technical information, but
Yeah.
okay. Nope. So in the gloss map input, drag in this occlusion roughness metallic, and let's see, I'm gonna change this mode to metalness. Drag that in there. And turn on occlusion. Drag it in there. So the occlusion map is in the red channel, the metalness is in blue.
How can you tell?
And gloss is in the green.
So
And
you
that needs
can't
to be
export
inverted.
directly to Marmoset? Like there's no.
I mean, I'm
setting
sure there might be an export setting, but it's not that. If you're only ever rendering in Marmoset, then I guess that would be useful. All right, so now we have everything set up. Let's make it a bit brighter. Change the brightness of that.
Cool. Is that it?
Now
I
you
like
have,
the dirt at the base of the blade. That looks good.
yeah, it's a bit intense, but
I like it.
and it's a bit noisy overall, but
Yeah.
now you have a textured knife with a bunch of detail.
Neat.
And we could,
So if I were to deliver this to a client, I would send them my mesh file and my baked out maps in a folder, and then they would do what they wanted in Unreal with that.
this looks better.
Yeah. That looks pretty good. So, say I got contracted as a freelance artist to do texture art.
Yeah.
It would be, I would have to ask for my UV map to be included into it because I wouldn't be able to do the UV map.
If you were just doing texture work, then in a lot of cases you would also be tasked to UV unwrap
Okay.
the mesh,
So
which
you would do in Maya.
You would do it in a program like Maya.
Okay. Or ZBrush.
You could do it in ZBrush, but it's a lot shittier. Um, so yeah, that is one thing to keep in mind. But
How difficult is UV mapping? It's another lesson.
yeah, I mean
but-
it's not too crazy. Change some
Excuse me.
renders. Let's try out a bunch of like rendering settings. So that's your knife for me.
Cool.
It's your knife and Substance Painter.
Awesome.
Um,
I'm proud of myself.
You should be. Substance Painter has its own rendering program, but it's not real time. It's like, it's more of like a film quality, like Disney rendering for still images.
Cool.
You can see it looks cool. I mean, it's a good way to like visualize how it's gonna look, but it has really cool, reflectivity and all that kind of stuff. So if you're doing like film quality texturing, then this could be a good option for you instead of using like Maya or something. So
What if I was texturing a model that's like cartoony, but is something like the Trolls movie?
so we
'Cause
could,
it's pretty highly realistic textures mixed with cartoony characters.
yeah, I mean there's a balance there. Quickly, let's see, could try to do a test. So let's just do filter and then do medium filter. Trying to do something stylized is a much more complicated thing.
I imagine you have to go into it planning to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to model the mesh in a way that's stylized. This is like very realistic. And also the problem is again, that noise in the normal map is all,
Getting in the way.
yeah, like just removing the normal map is already making it a little bit more cartoony looking. And then let's just try blurring roughness. Maybe
Some brothers on
sweet. Yeah. Well, you're the one asking me more questions.
Well, wrap it up, man, and then just keep fucking around in your own time. Alright, I'll do some work.
Okay. Well, it's kind of more cartoony now.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, this will be edited for your convenience, fellow viewer, future viewers. I hope this was useful, and let me know if you have any questions.
I feel much more competent with Substance Painter. All thanks to Stephen Messier.
You are welcome, Christy.
I didn't say thank you, but thank
Oh.
you.
Shit.
Alright.
Bye bye, everybody.